For a second.
Are you ready? I'm going to start recording.
Okay.
I am recording this meeting now.
Okay, fantastic. Let me get my agenda out. Some background noise. Let's see. I'd like to move that we reconvene to regular public meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Oh, let me unmute everybody. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Sorry. 1 second, please. Sorry, guys, we had a little distraction in the background. Okay, where are we? At this time, I'd like to invite anyone who'd like to recite the Pledge of Allegiance to do so. We can start right now.
We have a flag?
We don't have a flag. We can have an imaginary flag.
I thought Dr. Taylor had a flag.
I have a flag. Hang on, guys.
Okay.
I'm sorry I didn't have it right.
That's okay.
I'll be ready in just a second, folks. All right, here it comes.
Okay.
Okay. There we go. All right. Linda, will you start us off?
So I pledge allegiance to the flag of the States of America and to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That was cacophonous. Thank you, everybody. And welcome to our student reps. I think I saw Stella. There you are, Stella, and Andy. Hi, Andy. Thanks for joining us. All right. I'd like to, communications. Linda, have there been any communications beyond those on the agenda?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Excellent. I'd like to move, oh, sorry.
No, that's fine.
I'd like to move that we approve the minutes from our February 24th meetings, our 2 executive session meetings, and our 1 public session meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion or questions, comments, concerns? Nobody. Okay. I'm having trouble like seeing everybody and reading the agenda at the same time.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
So I need all of the board members to be on. Please
Unmuted.
unmute Miss Chris Woodward. Please unmute yourself. Okay. Ms. Lyer?
Yeah.
Ms. Coleman?
Yes.
Ms. Gowan?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Magaziner?
Yes.
Ms. McFadden Nicola?
Yes.
Mr. Reslevich?
Yes.
Mr. Woodward?
Yes.
Thank you.
And now I'm delighted to ask our student representatives if they have a report for us today. Stella and, hi, Andy.
Hi, are we ready?
We're ready for you. I'm muting everybody else, I think. Wait, actually, Andy, hold on a sec.
Okay.
I'm gonna mute everybody and then unmute you. Yes. Okay, Andy.
So at the high school held a Zoom meeting for the faculty March 18th, where 55 faculty members attended. It was great. It was great to see everyone, and especially them sharing their ideas about virtual learning. The senior class advisor, Ms. Whiter, and Mr. Lassiter are considering plans for senior activities and how to reschedule them if needed. And we have a meeting on Wednesday coming up here to talk about that with the class officers included. The school drama production, Into the Woods, is now tentatively scheduled for a concert-style performance on May the 17th. And guidance counselors, Ms. Hayes, Ms. Laviola, and Ms. Peterson are reaching out to students right now to see if everyone is okay and adjusting to this remote learning style. At the middle school, Ms. Lexa, the Dean of Restorative Practice, has set up an SEL folder for students and families. Mr. Lobianco, the school counselor, is also reaching out and supporting our families and also making families aware of the meal and distribution and paper-based activities. The middle school staff had a Zoom meeting on March 20th at 10 a.m. and Dr. Chu has created a check-in for staff via Google Forms for the 6th grade, and staff are concerned that they have students who have yet to check in with them. Mr. LoBianco will follow up with the families, and once finalized, all grades will be implemented. At Bartle, they had a visual spirit week, which is really exciting, from the 16th to the 20th, hashtag Bartle Spirit. So be sure to follow Bartle on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The staff had their first Zoom meeting, which was a big success, and a technology survey was sent to all grades, or sent to grades grade 3rd through 5th, and their families got that, and there was nothing from Irving.
All right, Stella, I'm going to try to unmute you. There we go. Hi, Stella.
Hi.
So, since our meeting from a couple weeks ago got canceled or rescheduled, we never got to highlight the achievements that the DECA chapter and Model UN had. So DECA came first, second, or third in all of their manuals. And then, unfortunately, we will not be able to attend nationals this year because it did get canceled. So as devastating as it is, we're still extremely proud of our chapter, and hopefully in the future, when things are better, we will celebrate. And then Model UN completely dominated at Mexico, I think they were the best delegate, and so it was a really good week for Highland Park High School.
Oh, that's fantastic. What great news in a period of not much great news. That's great.
Yes.
Thank you. Scott, do you know, or maybe Andy knows, I'm not sure, as to the Bartle technology survey, did that go out on hard copy to parents?
Which, well,
The Bartle
I have
survey.
the Bartle principal here. I'm going to unmute her.
Oh, yes, there you are, I think. Wait.
It has, ooh,
Hi,
am I unmuted? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
It has not gone out paperless
Paper.
on paper yet, but it will.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you for doing that.
No problem.
Yeah. All right, and now it's time for the superintendent's report. Scott, take it away.
Well, I appreciate Jen is here. I'm going to allow Nicole Stahl to use her video if she would like. I'll unmute her. I have a feeling she's here to support the students who Jen, I don't think have arrived yet. Am I right? Go ahead, unmute yourself.
I haven't seen them yet.
Okay, well, how about I make my presentation first, and then we'll circle back to the students. My presentation won't be more than about 5 minutes.
Sounds good.
Okay, so with that, I am going to shift gears and update the board and the community on the state of our response to the current crisis, which has been, as you know, all-consuming for the leadership team. I prepared some pictures, which I'd first like to show you a visual of how things have been going so far. So we have 2 distribution points for meals to provide our students who receive subsidized breakfast and lunch. And here's a shot of the Pomptonian team that set up on the first day at Bartle. That's one of our 2 distribution sites. I'll talk about the other site in a second. This next picture is a picture at the second site, which is at Cedar Lane Apartments. It's beside Building 11, which is the building almost at the end of Cedar Lane. So it's the last driveway, last street you can make a right on when you're going towards Edison. On the left is a gentleman who's actually the site coordinator for Jamesburg, who helped out, and Barbara Renda on the right, the Highland Park site coordinators. So we have been averaging, and I'm going to point this out on another slide, between 40 and 50 meals a day. Today we had 38 meals distributed, 35 from Bartle, 3 from the distribution point at Cedar Lane. I am extremely proud of our teachers and our support staff. They have just rallied around this new learning environment. And here is just some pictures of what that looks like. Twitter has come alive. Irving and Bartle's Facebook and Twitter accounts were full of pictures of kids and teachers showing their spirit for Spirit Weeks. In fact, I have a calendar here of the Spirit Weeks that both schools launched last week. They're continuing plans to do these kinds of fun things as we move along. Meanwhile, the leadership team has been meeting almost daily, and in some cases, like the today's meeting, for 2.5 hours at a clip. We have actually, I think Jen would vouch for this likely. I think our meetings have been more efficient since we've gone to Zoom. You don't have so many side conversations. We're at the point at which our meetings are less frequent and they're less in duration because we're finally overcoming all the little things details that we feel like we have to address. Let's talk about one of the most important responses we had to put in place as a result of the current crisis, and that's how to continue learning and support, but first learning. So as I've stated in my various Honeywells to the community and the staff, we've phased in, and we are continuing to phase in. We have one more phase to go. Layers of academic support with the recognition that we're all adjusting to this new way of life. Our teachers are now home with their kids. Our parents and guardians are now home with their kids, in some cases little kids, young kids who need a lot of attention. Our own students, even the older students, are anxious, I'm sure. Many anxious, depressed, having to adjust to this new world in which we're currently living. So we didn't feel as a leadership team it was appropriate to start right away with highly structured schedules, collection of materials, and grading of activities. So that's why we have been introducing our work in phases. Next week will be the launch of phase 3. Phase 3 is going to have us providing more structure by establishing schedules that we're going to roll out to the teachers tomorrow, later in the day, and then on Wednesday to the parents and guardians, but provide some flexibility. So whereas some school districts have decided to set up regimented schedules and require kids to be up at certain times and fixate on classes at certain times, we're going to be looking for a middle ground that would give our kids a little bit of flexibility, but at the same time provide them the structure that we all really do need for our own mental well-being, if not the continuity of instruction. We are planning on directing teachers to develop lessons that will now introduce new curriculum content that they would have had they been in a live setting, whereas right now we've only asked them to supplement existing curricula, not teach new things. And we're also going to be launching a way that we will grade students. We are talking, which is why I list here that it's a consideration, the idea of not using a letter graded system, but rather going to a pass-fail system for a variety of reasons. One of which is consideration for the kids' mental well-being. The other, to also acknowledge that this new learning environment is different. It's not as authentic, we think, the leadership team thinks, as live settings. And so we have to question how much grades can be taken into account when we're in this unorthodox learning environment. And finally, we are getting closer to the place at which we'll have everybody in grades 3 to 12 with a computer, if he, she, or they don't have it, and online. Right now, we are also planning to have our counselors check in with their kids, Teen Center, to establish structured counseling sessions by phone or by video conference with students who were previously being seen by counselors. We're also considering, starting next week, having our extracurricular activities be virtual. There's some interesting proposals being thrown out there by my colleagues around the county to have coaches actually engage their athletes in personal wellness activities that they can do online. The child study team is going to carry on IEPs and other related services via phone and video conferencing. That's something Susie has been charged to do with Dee Dee. And Susie's also working on a plan starting next week to allow parents and guardians to come pick up in a very controlled environment any medical supplies that they might still need from the nurse's office. Speaking of internet access, let me come back to that. Right now, we have 20 students who are signed up for free internet service. Thanks to Dr. Nicosia and her team, we were able to set that up using LightPath. We, at this point, believe we're close to having 100% access rate of our middle and high school students on the internet. And we're working really hard to get our Bartle kids there as well. We are surveying all of our families. We'll continue to survey them through Tuesday. And right now we have 28 people who've said they need computers. We anticipate that number could double because we're only halfway through our survey of those students right now. Also, next week, phase 3 of our remote learning plan, we're going to be providing a whole new type of professional development academy. It'll be virtual for our teachers, for our leadership team. I'm going to be engaging them in some professional studies once we can get past all of the nuts and bolts work that we have to do. We shift gears now, talk a little bit about meal distribution. I showed you some pictures of bulk distribution sites. Right now, we're sticking to those sites daily. We are also making deliveries to 4 families, 3 of whom are homeless, 1 who is a resident here in Highland Park. We'll obviously continue to monitor people's needs. The borough task force on which I serve to respond to the crisis has been wonderful. They're putting me in touch with people who may either not know about the distribution points or need us to deliver. Right now, we're able to use our own personnel to make these deliveries in a very safe way. We are planning to distribute meals to the general student population. I had a meeting this morning with the leadership team. The challenge, of course, is doing so in such a structured manner that we don't compromise safety. And one thing that's been proposed is a possible car line distribution process. I'm waiting on Scott Triola, the regional director for Pomptonian Food Services, to get back to me. He's going to share some best practices he's reviewing from other school districts in the Pomptonian portfolio. And finally, I just want to touch on how things are going behind the scenes. We each as leadership team members have individual responsibilities. Principals are in charge of running the buildings, being the direct line of communication with their teachers. Christina Nicosia is running point on all things remote learning, from collecting information and codifying it so that I can then communicate it out to parents, guardians, and personnel, to arranging the remote learning website that is now active. Michelle Rodriguez is going to be the coordinator for all personnel support. She's working right now on making sure that all of our teachers are up and running with Google Classroom this week so we could use it next week. She's working closely with Nicole Krupski, of course. Nicole's continuing to be our professional development coordinator. But Michelle Rodriguez is tasked right now primarily with making sure that our teachers feel good about moving forward into next week. We're able to, also thanks to the tech department, continue to process payroll and accounts payable like we were in the office. There are times when central office secretaries will come in on an as-needs basis. Anybody who wants to come in is requesting access through me, and then I'm making arrangements with Mike O'Donnell to be sure that we sanitize and scrub down the work area after the person leaves. So we are trying to be very coordinated about who needs to come in and when they need to come in. We're able to distribute checks, so we're going to run paper checks like we've always done so for our staff, and then and send them out. And we have a system that has us collecting mail and packages throughout the week. So that's where we stand right now. I'll take any questions or concerns before I switch back to Jen Knapp. Please raise your virtual hand if you have a question.
Is everybody able to do that?
Michelle does. Go ahead.
There we go. Yeah.
I have a few questions, but my first is about Irving because I know that, well, especially Irving and Bartle, I should say, because I know they don't have the virtual capabilities that the high schoolers and middle schoolers do with the Chromebooks that were given out. So how are they managing their classes, the classrooms? I'm just very curious about how that's going, and I hope it's going well because their kids at home all day with the parents might be a lot.
So I'll show you a picture of how things have been going the last 2 weeks. Very interesting. So we did make paper copies. We had our building secretaries here until, I'm going to show you this picture very quickly because I don't want to compromise confidentiality, but you can see that table has been out every day for the last 2 weeks. And on that table are all the paper copies that we needed to provide people who didn't have access. It hasn't been, it's not really a viable, sustainable option going forward for a variety of reasons, which is why we're going to move to an online environment for grades 3 to 12. But as I said, assuring all of our Bartle kids are up and running with internet and computer access by surveying all of our families, which we've done, we're halfway through doing at Bartle, grades 3 to 5, and we'll finish up tomorrow or Wednesday. We are going to be encouraging our Irving teachers to create activities, not online based, that are play-based, infuse play and free time and flexible time, getting them outdoors, maintaining, of course, proper social distancing, but also making whatever paper copies they need consolidated, concise, so that we don't have to print mounds of paper and lay them out on the table.
Sure. And my second question was about like Wi-Fi access, and I'm so glad that we have 100% of our students that have the Chromebooks have Wi-Fi accessible, but I'm trying to look at the silver lining in this crisis, and I'm thinking about all the ways that this can change our perspective and open up conversation for improvement and making progress.
I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time understanding.
Is that helpful?
I'll come back to it. It's more of a data transmission problem. Seems like you're broken.
I don't know if this is working. Can you hear me? Oh, okay. I can maybe just text you my question. Would that be working? Like,
yeah, that would help if you did. I'll pick up my text.
Yeah, Scott can read them out after that.
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll do that. I'll go to Chris now. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say thank you to everybody that's on the team. I mean, I think the district has done a great job in, balancing some kinds of educational activity with the mental health of the kids and the parents, and the way that we've sort of eased in from something that's unstructured to something that's structured, I think is great. I just, related to what Michelle was saying, a lot of the Wi-Fi companies have announced some new initiatives to get more kids online. I was just wondering, have there been kids that have been taking advantage of that, or have we not seen that yet? Or
Scott, you're muted.
All right, I should clarify that LightPath is actually one of those internet provider services that we've taken advantage of. They're piggybacking off of existing cable operator or mostly cable operator hotspots that are around the region. So kids don't need a physical Wi-Fi device of their own. And right now we have 20 who are up and running who requested that service. And the 28 from Bartle who has requested equipment may need that access as well. And by the way, Chris, I'll just share how that's all worked. So Christina has collected the information from us who have gotten it from parents. We've gotten their name, their child's grade level, and then their cell phone number or landline number. And then Christina has been able to manually update configurations on the Chromebooks, because we first worked with the middle high school kids on LightPath, so that the parents, guardians, students didn't have to really do much at all except follow a couple of very quick instructions, and they were up and running. So it's been pretty seamless. So Chris, do you want to follow up, or you? Sorry, Chris, you're muted, so just unmute yourself.
Yeah, I was just curious about what effect the new programs are having, and I think you answered my question. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. And so Michelle's question is, can we break the ice with the council about town Wi-Fi? This crisis is demonstrating how internet access is a utility, not a luxury. And that's actually a great idea. We should leverage this. And so I'll make a note of that. I've been talking daily with the borough task force. So we get to a point at which things start to stabilize, maybe I can enter that into the conversation. Anybody else?
Yeah, sorry, I can't raise my hand. I don't have a hand raising thing. How many extra computers do we have for kids at Bartle? Are we good to go?
If Christina's actually in the conference, and if she wants, she can
Christina.
unmute herself and answer that question. Go ahead, Christina.
Hi. Oh, sorry. Hold on, just so people can see me.
Hello.
Yeah. So we have plenty of Chromebooks if we need to give out. We'd like to give out some of our Samsungs first. So right now, I probably have about 4 or 5 carts of about 25. So we're looking pretty good in terms of our numbers. I would just have to get my team in to decommission, clean them up, and asset tag them to be distributed. I'd have to get the MAC addresses off those devices for those students that would need Wi-Fi to do what Dr. Taylor was just talking about. And then we should be good with getting some out to students in need.
Oh God, can you do that safely, Christina? I mean, I hate to think of you in the building touching every surface, you know.
Right, so Dr. Taylor and I spoke about that already, and we'd have to work with Mr. O'Donnell in telling him where the carts are, the classrooms where the carts are, have the carts moved to a safe location, maybe the media center, and we each take an area of the media center, so that way, or a classroom where we can be 6 feet apart and work collectively to do this. And then they just only have to really spray down and clean up that one area. I'd have to figure out how to get the supplies needed to clean the Chromebooks because I wouldn't want to give them out if they haven't been cleaned or anything like that, just because we don't know how long the virus lives on those kinds of surfaces. So that would be it. And then again, just trying to figure out a pickup and or drop off location to get the devices to the students in need.
Great, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
By the way, Ann, that reminds me, in case you're all wondering what happened to the class pets and plants, we developed a system whereby people can actually pick them up. So last week, Thursday, between I think it was 10 and 12, we delivered all the pets and plants that people told us about to the main entrances of the schools, and people came one by one to pick them up, in case you were wondering. Michelle?
I sent you another text.
Oh,
I sent it to Anne as well. It's a library. The local library has a resource, virtual resources for free that I wanted to share with everyone.
I can share that, actually. If you give me a second, I'll just put that up on the screen. Give me a second on that. And I'll pull it up. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Thank you. Where'd you find that one, Michelle?
I follow the Highland Park Public Library on Instagram, and that's from their Instagram account.
And by the way, I got to give the new Highland Park Library director a really big shout out. She has been awesome. She already has offered to do a virtual workshop for our staff. So kudos to her.
That's wonderful, thank you. Other comments about the presentation? Scott, I'm delighted that we've gotten the food distribution rolled out, and it would be just amazing if we could offer it to other people in the community, because I'm sure people are struggling and have not signed up for free and reduced lunch. So thank you to everybody who's.
Couple of days, we're trying to work it out.
That's wonderful.
So I'm going to come back to Jen Knapp.
Okay.
And I can see we have our parents on. So
Yay, welcome parents.
if Cecilia is there, the Ricardis, you can turn your video on if you'd like, if you feel comfortable doing so.
But you don't have to.
If Elijah Pierce is out there. All right.
Hi, Cecilia.
Hi, Cecilia.
Hey, Cecilia, you can turn on your audio. You know how to do that?
Probably better than we do.
There you go. Rocking it. And I'm wondering if we have Elijah out there. I see participant 2. I'm not sure if that's Elijah or not. Well, Elijah, if you're there and you need some help, let us know. You can.
Elijah's not here.
Throw out. Okay. All right. So Ms. Knapp is here to spotlight Cecilia and Elijah. Take it away, Ms. Knapp.
Great. I'm very excited. So Ms. Stahl, Dr. Nicosia, and I are very excited to acknowledge 2 5th-grade students, Elijah Pierce and Cecilia Tanner Riccardi. We are recognizing these 2 students because they exemplify what it means to persevere and collaborate to solve a problem. These students worked so hard in Fuse to code Sparky, and they never gave up. They were so engrossed in their work that they did not want to quit. When their classes' Fuse sessions were over, they didn't want to give up, and they asked if they could continue working so that they could finish all of the Sparky challenges. They had many hurdles to overcome, but they stuck with it, and through strong communication and collaborative skills, they succeeded. Ms. Stahl's class did an assignment, and I would like to read what Cecilia wrote, if that's okay with you, Cecilia. Okay. If I was going to do math with anyone, I think I would choose Elijah. I would choose him because when we worked together in Fuse, we were a pretty good team, and we got a lot accomplished. I also think I would choose him because even though he doesn't always do the math the fastest, he is smart and knows when he has done something wrong. Many times, Mrs. Stahl has told Elijah to sit with me, and I feel like I learn things too when he does. That is why I would choose Elijah. These 2 students learned to truly collaborate and have continued to learn from each other after the challenges have ended. We are very proud of these 5th-grade Bartle Dolphins. Congratulations, Elijah and Cecilia.
Congratulations. All right.
Thank you.
Thank
you. That's wonderful.
We're going to send these to you tomorrow. Yeah, we'll send them by email so you can print them out at home. And then we owe you a picture.
Yes, whenever we get back to school.
I vote for this being the highlight of my 2 weeks right now. One of the
For sure. For sure. Congrats, Cecilia and Elijah.
Thank you.
Cecilia and Elijah, if you see this as a recording, Dr. Nicosia is here. I have a feeling she's here for you guys. Am I right about that?
Yes, you are. Congratulations. I'm so proud of how hard they worked. And coding, let me just tell you, coding Sparky the robot for everybody out there is not easy. Not easy. Both Ms. Knapp and I can attest to that. And the amount of perseverance and sheer will to want to do this was incredible and remarkable. So a big congratulations to 2 future STEM people in the world.
All right. And Ms. Stahl is here too. Ms. Stahl, if you're listening and you want to talk, you can unmute yourself.
Okay, I wasn't sure I was allowed. Cecilia, I'm so proud of you and Elijah, and it's been so fun to digitally connect with you more than once today, but you both should be so proud, and hopefully you and Elijah will finish your PEEPS project together, your next collaborative experiment when we return.
All right.
Yay.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Woo! You guys are welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting if you want, and you're also welcome to leave, whatever you prefer.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye. Congrats. Thank you, teachers and administrators, for coming. That's
And that
fantastic.
concludes my report, Madam President.
Wonderful. Okay, well, for those watching in the public, now is when we are going to skip number 12 temporarily and move on to discuss our board action items, number 13. And then before we vote, we'll jump back to public comment.
Point of order.
Yes.
My agenda has the board committee reports as number 11 and public comment number 12. You have a different agenda?
No, I apologize. I was trying to explain for the benefit of some students who are here that it looks like we're going to start talking about all the action items. I didn't want anybody to think that we had skipped number 12. You're right. Number 11 is committee reports, but we also typically go through the agenda.
Right.
So it can be confusing for people watching.
Okay. Thank you.
We're on number 11 right now. Number 11 will involve us referring to number 13. Then we'll go back to number 12. All right. Michelle, curriculum and instruction. Please report or let us know what's going on. Oh, muted. Oh, let me see if I can unmute you.
That's
Try
it.
again.
Okay.
Yay.
All right. So we had a Zoom meeting on Thursday, March 19th. And me and Monique were able to attend, but Monique got there way before me because I couldn't figure out how to access Zoom right away. So I was about a half an hour late. So Monique, if you wouldn't mind jumping in whenever with what was missed, I would appreciate it. So let's see. I'm just going to go through the agenda really quickly. We talked a little bit about, let's see, started off with sports and communication. That must have been the part that I missed, though. When I got to the meeting, I can tell you that we discussed working on curriculum strategic goals. So a while ago, we had discussed that the curriculum committee was interested in putting together specific strategic goals for curriculum specifically. So we did talk about that, and one of the things that we discussed was using the template that Dr. Taylor had used for the district-wide strategic goals. So I invite the rest of the curriculum committee to take a look at that. That's in our email about our last meeting. So there should be 3 attachments, 4 attachments actually, from the drive on our last email. I'm having trouble finding the agenda.
I am too. That's what I'm looking for now, Michelle, so I can kind of chime in, but I don't want to talk off the top of my head and not even have the bullet points. So I'm trying to locate that.
Yeah, just give us a minute. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Take your time. Let us know when you got it. I can share it with you again if you need it.
Okay, I think.
There's just so many emails.
Oh, the curriculum committee agenda. I'm sorry. I thought you meant the board agenda.
Oh, yeah. So here it is. Thank you. Dr. Taylor put it up for us.
Okay, great.
So I guess, Monique, if you wouldn't mind kind of jumping in whenever, because we have some numbers that I know that I missed the conversation for those. I think I joined the meeting, unfortunately, around number 4.
Mm-hmm. So in number 3, which the bullet point there says National Honor Society, and we were, I think that was on the agenda because Michelle, if I'm not mistaken, raised some questions about the National Honor Society at our last board meeting.
Right.
And so Scott did come back to us with actually some pretty telling and stark numbers in terms of the membership of our National Honor Society and the racial demographic breakdown of the membership. So we did look at those numbers, and currently there are 39 total members. And I'm sorry, not currently, Scott, over the past 2 years. Is that correct? There have been
this year and next year.
This year, next year. Okay. So 39 members, 19 white students, 18 Asian, 1 African American, and 1 low SES, and 0 Latinx students. So clearly, you know, just the glaring underrepresentation of African American students and Latinx students were really the focus of our brief conversation on these numbers. And I say brief because we decided this was certainly something that Equity and Excellence would want to look into, you know, further in our committee because it's clearly an equity, most equity related issue. So we want to take a close look at it through that lens. And we actually did that in the meeting, or started that process anyway, in our meeting that took place prior to this board meeting. So again, we didn't get into a whole lot of detail in terms of talking about these numbers, because again, Scott is really just getting into this, and clearly the COVID situation has taken priority here. But he will be going back to Ms. Mayer, the coordinator of the program, to, you know, get some more understanding as to what could possibly be happening here and causing this kind of disparity racially with the membership. You know, clearly we talked about, you know, the guidelines, what are the requirements? Are there flexibility? Is there any sort of flexibility with the requirements, not to water down or reduce the rigor of what it takes to become a National Honor Society student, but just looking more holistically possibly. So I think there are questions about, first of all, you know, what could be happening based on the people on the grounds who are working with this club, and also then what could be our response to maintain this program, but also obviously make it more representative of what we know our students are capable of.
Also, I wanted to mention that at the last board conference in Atlantic City, I went to a presentation, which is why we started talking about this, but I went to a presentation along with Mr. Krieger and Dr. Taylor, where I believe it was Freehold Township, I'm not real sure. It was a larger high school where they had taken their National Honor Society out and replaced it with a different type of group that celebrated the achievements, the academic achievements, but also highlighted achievements in other ways. And so it was just a very brief introduction to some other options that we could take a deeper look at that could really improve the equity issues that this National Honor Society breakdown has some equity issues here, but also to encourage students to participate in different ways. So it doesn't necessarily sound like a bad idea to research that a little further. So we're still looking at that in the very early stages.
So I know that, well, just from my own professional experience, that Freehold Regional still, that particular district, and definitely has a National Honor Society. I actually just signed a couple letters for students in that particular school district. But yeah, I'm sure there is another district that you may be referring to.
I think it was Point Pleasant, actually. I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah, I think, again, we discussed this in Equity and Excellence, looking at what we have now and how we can make what we have now, the National Honor Society Club, more representative and reflective of what we know that our more marginalized students are capable of. And it's a reflection, I think, yes, on the National Honor Society structure and you know, kind of admittance requirements, because there are areas where there can be, I think, biases involved and in determining who gets in. And I'm talking about like the character recognition requirement, you know, the community service recognition or community service component, which of course all students should be doing, but we know that certain students who may come from more advantaged households and backgrounds have more access and are, you know, more able to take part in various volunteer opportunities. So I think we need to have those conversations. first. I think that's a really important starting point, and look at what we can do to improve and open up access to what we have. Because this is not a Highland Park issue. As you said, Michelle, clearly other districts are having this problem if they're already looking outside of the box. But by the same token, you know, I think the National Honor Society should be pushed to, because of its recognition and its status and his historic sort of right standing in school systems, to really be pushed to be more reflective and inclusive of the students that we have in this country in our schools.
I'm on it, and I'll be reporting back to both curriculum and equity in April.
Great, thank you, Scott.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So moving along, Scott, can you put back up the agenda? Because were we done yet, Michelle, or was there?
No, I think we had a number of different.
Do you mind sharing the agenda screen again, or?
Nope, no problem. I'm going to put it back up.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you. Okay, so we talked about number 4, which detailed PD and planning for explicit instruction about hate language and symbols. And one of the ideas that we came up with was involving the town council in that initiative for PD, so that we could, I guess, supplement the town council's proposal. It wasn't a proposal, actually. They did pass it. It was a resolution about the BDS movement. And so we talked about the potential for us to work together on that issue of professional development and planning. The next item was the homework reform.
Sorry, can I just, sorry, but since you presented this as a resolution on the BDS issue, we focused on the hate and the bias specifically, right, and right, targeted towards students. That was our concern, not getting into the sort of rest of.
We were not in any way endorsing any activity, I guess, around the BDS movement, or proposing that we were going to involve the staff in any of that. Mm-hmm. The idea was just to advantage the conversation that clearly, you know, was happening at the council level, and to maybe work together, because it seems that the issues that we're dealing with, that we see in children's behavior, is not organic in the child. It's coming from the adults surrounding that child. Mm-hmm. So dealing with the council might make the adult population of Highland Park more accessible to us in terms of planning and getting our message out, so that the message is just not targeted toward the children, because again, that's not where it looks like it's actually originating. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the next item we talked about was homework reform, and this was another thing that the virus pandemic behavior has affected, because Dr. Taylor did talk about how the at-home virtual learning is affecting homework and other things. So again, he decided that we would kind of have a less structured homework plan for the near future. So this was not exactly put on hold, but this was just changing the perspective on homework, because at this point, everything is homework. So we talked about the idea that you know, we need to really rethink that concept, and that we also need to take it slow so that we're not overwhelming the children with a lot of assignments and due dates when everything else seems to be changing in such great amount.
Michelle, I want to point out that I'll be postponing what was going to be the forum March 31st to a future date in April, and it will be online. I'll do likely a Zoom focus group meeting. So be on the lookout for an advertisement about that, okay?
Great, thank you. Next, we discussed the LGBTQ curricula pilot that we are participating in with a number of other districts in New Jersey. The remote learning that we're doing is making this challenging, to say the least. But I think that Dr. Taylor told us that the faculty was using the time to work on this curricula pilot and infusing the LGBTQ curricula, the history and all of that into their planning. So maybe this has given us an opportunity to have more time to do that, it sounds like.
Yep.
Can't see on my screen if there's a number 7. I think there was something else after that, no?
Curriculum initiative, the strategic planning, action planning.
Yes, I mentioned that earlier, that we are going to, as a curriculum committee, be starting the process of a strategic plan for curricula, or our district-wide curriculum. So this is, Dr. Taylor, thank you for putting that up there. This is the template that we're using. So I believe there's 3 goals that we have so far to work on, and we're going to be working on that. So it's a collaborative effort. If anyone has ideas moving forward, that's all in our email, and please share ideas for that strategic plan.
Okay.
I think that's it. We didn't go through the agenda, but we can go through that once we get to it. But that's it for the committee.
Do you want to
report.
do that now, or do you want to wait until we vote? What do you prefer?
We should do it now, Anne, like we always do.
Yeah, let's do it now, Michelle. Is that okay?
Okay.
I mean, it's possible most of it is self-explanatory, but if there's anything interesting.
Yeah. Let's see. We had some field trips, not many, but I think there were 3 field trips. The school calendar is up on the drive as well. And then we had the HIB incident reports for the month of January. And I think that we are going to have an amendment to letter H.
Yes.
So I'll mention that when we go through the agenda, but that is the number for the letter. This incident report is the one that we discussed, 1920-06 at the high school. Agenda item 4 is the approval of graduate students for observations, and that is at Bartle and the middle school in the science department. And number 5 is the approval of staff to attend a podcasting workshop. And I'm assuming that those teachers would be given PD on how to give instruction on starting a podcast, if I'm not mistaken.
I'll share the virtual PD Academy booklet that's going to be rolled out next week. You'll see, I think what we're very mindful of is that this is not just about technique, it's about a culture of learning that has to happen too, that will be a shift for people. The other thing I want to point out, since I have the mic for just a second here, is that the Rutgers practicum students will continue to do their work. They'll just do it side by side with teachers online.
All right, did anybody have questions or comments? Please raise your hand about curriculum. Seeing none, Mark, finance.
Yes, thank you, Anne. So I'm going to go through the agenda, and then when we get to actually voting, I'm just going to move everything. So items 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 are all our usual bill lists. Item 6 is approval of a treasurer's report for January 31st, 2020. Item 7 is the board secretary's report as of that same date, January 31st, 2020. The item 8 is the Board of Education certification of the monthly finance report, again, January 31st. Number 9 is approval of budget transfers. for the month of January. Item 10 is the approval of travel and related expense reimbursement reports. Item 11 is approval of contractors for professional services for June 15th on CPR and first aid certification. Item 12 is an approval of an out-of-district placement of a student. And I believe, again, we discussed this before. I believe this is a student who's moving from one out-of-district placement to another.
Correct.
Item 13 are three students needing bedside instruction. Item 14 are Highland Park Education Foundation grants. And thank you to the HPEF for these grants. This is a significant amount of money that'll go into working with our students. In the cases where these trips have been canceled or put off, we'll, I believe the plan is to keep the money in for the next trip, which may be the trip that, a trip that was postponed until a future month or later. But this is money that will go towards one of these trips in the future. Item 15 is the approval of a Workable World Trust grant and the amount of $5,000 paid directly to the Model UN for our Model UN conference that the students attended in Mexico City last month. Item 16 is and thank you to the Workable World Trust Fund for this grant. Item 16 is approval of a donation of a double French horn from Eileen Chant, valued at $1,000 to be used at the Bartle Elementary School. And thank you also to Ms. Chant. Item 17 is the acceptance of a donation through the Donors Choose website for a project entitled We Need Trusty Calculators to Count On to purchase graphing calculators for Rebecca Ailey's class in the middle school, totaling $1,754.81. Item 18 is the approval of purchase of 4,874 LED lights for Irving, Bartle, and the high school. These are eligible for virtually 100% rebate from the New Jersey Smart Start program, resulting in a cost to us of only $517.12 of the $36,435.87 that they actually cost. So that's a tremendous savings. Items 19 and 20 are a purchase of a repair of the wrestling mat hoist in the middle school. We had two bids, that's in number 19, and number 20 is the approval of the contract for repairing the hoist at a cost of $5,900. And then the last item is the master approval of the Collaborative Education Services Agreement that will run from July 1st, 2020, between the district and the Educational Services Commission of New Jersey, from July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2025. And then one last thing is, of course, we've been working on the budget. We did pass a preliminary budget last Thursday. We will continue to work on the budget, and I'm sure there'll be some changes, perhaps considerable changes, but that'll be going on, and we have approximately 2 months to put that budget into the state. And that's my report.
Wonderful, thank you. Other questions, discussion points? Please raise your little hand here. Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to personnel. I'm having a little technological breakdown here and not finding my notes from our minutes of March 9th. So let me just go over the agenda items for now. Everything is pretty self-explanatory. Number one is our traditional approval of substitutes. We have a maternity leave of absence, an extension of a maternity leave, a resignation. We're sorry to see Mrs. Candelaria go over at Irving. Appointment of a reading interventionist. Welcome, Ms. Silverman. Oh, it's an correction, I'm sorry. Professional development funds, overnight chaperones, 9th grade orientation. That looks like that already happened. I'm not going to read through the rest of them. They're all pretty basic. Let's see. Yep, all right, that's it. Does anybody on personnel want to remind me if we discussed anything fit for public consumption at our March 9th meeting?
And if you'd like, I'm sorry, I'll give it up to the rest of the committee and then I'll share.
Okay, my apologies.
No, it's okay. Anybody have anything to mention?
Go ahead, Scott.
Well, so we did talk a little bit about our focus on trying to diversify our employee pool. We do have a disconnect in the number of Hispanic employees and number of Hispanic students. We ran a quick review in our database of applicants and think we can do more to hone in on some of the Hispanic candidates who've been applying to bring them in for interviews and try to make a harder push to expand that pool. I think that's the only thing I can actually share for public consumption.
Thank you for sharing that. That's right. We spent quite a bit of time talking about that. So Scott, I forgot what ideas specifically we talked about, just sort of looking at the pool and reaching out to people who've applied already.
At that meeting, I focused on sharing what I've directed the team to do, which is to recognize that we have this great percentage of folks who appear to be Hispanic applying for jobs, yet they're not all being given as careful look as perhaps we could be giving them. I just left it at that. I think we can do a better job being mindful that there is a disconnect. There's a real gap in the number of Hispanic employees, and yet we have almost a quarter of our student population comprised of Hispanic students.
That's right, right. I know we've talked a little bit in the past too about the dearth of Asian teaching staff and paras, so that's always something to consider as well.
Yeah.
And I know you've been mindful of that. All right, thank you, Scott, for filling in my gap there. Anybody have any comments or questions? Okay, then we will move on to, equity and excellence. I apologize. Policy, I'm sorry, got it.
Okay.
I'm there, policy, Mark.
Yeah, the only item here is the bilingual and ESL education. There was, I think, a miswritten sentence. We corrected that. We voted for first reading last month. This is second reading. The item that was discussed in February at the board on the condom availability, that is on the policy committee radar. And we will be discussing it in the near future with an eye towards making some kind of recommendation to the full board for perhaps for some implementation once the district is back to normal operation.
Great, thank you, Mark. Any questions or comments about that? Okay, equity and excellence. Monique, is there anything to report?
Yes, we actually did meet today before our executive sessions. We met via Zoom. We started off with of course, a COVID-19 update. Scott did, as he already shared, share the district response to the current emergency, but we looked at specifically sort of areas of access, specifically the Wi-Fi access and the access to remote learning, the meals, and special services for students who need support in these areas. Scott already shared details in those areas in his superintendent report. I will add that we talked specifically about finding out a little bit more detail as to what how related services are being provided at this point beyond the IEP meetings that are held via Zoom for students who receive special services. So Scott will consult with our supervisor and director to and report back to us to get some more information on how that particular aspect of our remote planning is being handled. Okay, so yes, all of the rest of this that we discussed has already been addressed in his presentation. And the second and last item on the agenda for us was the National Honor Society, which again, we touched on already in the curriculum meeting. Obviously went into a little bit more detail. Scott shared with us the total number of Black and Latinx students in 11th and 12th grades so that we could have some more perspective as to how much of a disparity we're talking about or disproportionality. So again, just to kind of rehash the National Honor Society numbers. We have one African-American or Black student, and I don't want to say African-American because I'm not sure if that student is actually African-American or maybe some other African or Black West Indian background, we're not sure. So we have one at this point out of 21 Black students in grades 11 to 12. And again, Latinx is 0 in National Honor Society, and we have 60 Latinx students in 11th to 12th grade. Low SES status, socioeconomic status, was another group that Scott did include in his numbers, and I just didn't record that. So I don't know if you have that number, Scott, that you can just share again. What was the number for that demographic group in National Honor Society?
Yeah, I'll pull it up.
Yeah. But clearly, again, we were just looking at the obvious underrepresentation in all of those categories.
Yeah, bear with me.
Mm-hmm.
Can you see that?
Yep.
Okay, so yes, and then one. And I don't believe we did get the total number of low SES students in the 11th and 12th grade as a comparison. But we can certainly follow up on that as we continue this conversation and this analysis of what's happening with our National Honor Society demographics. So yeah, we looked at sort of what are the eligibility requirements, and Scott did say 3.0 GPA on a 4.0 scale is the GPA requirement. There's also a volunteer service component where students have to get a certain number of hours of volunteer service, and then character recommendation letters. So, you know, those three forms of student honor or recognition are required to be eligible for the National Honor Society. So Scott will follow up with Ms. Mar and to get more information and her thoughts on what could be going on. We talked about the possibility that some students in these underrepresented groups may not even be aware that they're eligible. They may not, they need to be encouraged to apply. And so we don't know if there's a part of if that's a part of the issue. Clearly this is not just a Highland Park conversation. This happens in districts, you know, across the state and country. So I think we just have to look more deeper and more creatively at how to address this issue.
Great, thanks. Any comments, questions? Oh.
Oh, are you muted? I can't hear Ann, sorry.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. All right, sorry guys. If I'm not mistaken, it is now time for public comment. The Highland Park Board of Education welcomes public participation and has reserved this time for your comments. Board policies 164 and 167 establish and regulate the right of the public to participate in public meetings. I see we have a number of members of the public here, including some students. Let's see. Does anybody, I see we have students, I'm sorry, I'm gonna pronounce your name wrong. Is it Gayatri? And Toby. Is there anybody aside from those two students who would like to speak?
I recommend using your virtual hand. All you have to do is press the participant button and you'll see a little hand option. That's the best way for our visitors to join in.
Okay, I'm not seeing anybody else. So I am going to unmute Ms. Laff. Hello. And I'm going to try to unmute Tobias and Gayatri. Hello, Ms. Laff. Am I saying that right?
Yes, but I'm not speaking today. The kids are.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So
I just wanted to
me.
welcome you. Okay.
Thank you.
Let me mute you. Okay. Gayatri, is that how you pronounce your name? Can you hear me?
Yeah. Hi.
Perfect. Hi. Welcome. And Toby.
Yeah.
Are you? Where I'm looking on my screen for you. I can't find you, but I am sure you're there. Where are you? One second, please.
I can't start my video because it says that the host has stopped it.
Oh, the host has stopped the video. What?
You could start it again now. We just didn't want to put people on video unless they were ready to speak. There you are.
Hello. Hi. So I understand that, is it Toby?
Yeah.
Toby, I'm sorry, say your name again. Is it Gayatri or Gayatri?
Gayatri.
Gayatri. Toby and Gayatri had a presentation that they wanted to give, and we look forward to it. Go ahead, whenever you're ready.
All right, could I share my screen?
Sure.
All right.
We'll let you know that we can see it or whether we can see it.
All right, you guys see it?
Yes, I see it. Everybody okay?
Okay. All right. So we just wanted to give a presentation about the upcoming Autism Awareness Month, which is next month.
Okay. So, hi, my name is Toby Thaler, pronouns they and them. You might remember me from when I talked to you about the gender-neutral bathroom issue in September.
Yeah. My name's Gayatri, as we've established, and we're both juniors at the high school.
With Autism Awareness Month fast approaching, now may be the time to evaluate if we really have autistic people's interests in mind, or if our wish to be compassionate is really more about our own feelings. We have to make sure we're always amplifying the voices of neurodivergent people in this discussion and listening to what they want to need.
So what is the difference between acceptance and awareness? Awareness teaches about what autism is, as in the definition, but acceptance focuses more on understanding and respecting autistic people who actually prefer acceptance over awareness, because awareness views autistic people in stereotypes and doesn't help anyone in meaningful ways. Like walking marathons for awareness, while it seems beneficial, it doesn't really do much. Also, people already know what autism is. Like, you can look up on Google, what is autism, and find out what it is. But rarely do autistic people get the respect they deserve, and they usually get silenced. Autism Awareness Month, which is next month, is slowly being seen as Autism Acceptance Month, which is why our school should support autism acceptance rather than awareness. And also, Autism Speaks promotes autism awareness.
Okay, so what's the problem with Autism Speaks? It is the largest autism organization in the country, but many autistic people, as well as their families, reject their message of awareness and may even find it insulting. Their logo, the puzzle piece, sends the wrong message because it implies that autistic people are somehow incomplete or a puzzle to be solved, which is why some autistic people are now, which is why some people even view their logo as a hate symbol. Also, much of their messaging seems to paint autism and autistic individuals as burdens on their families and communities. They used to promote a supposed cure for autism and even showed sympathy my mom just walked past. And even showed sympathy towards parents who acted violently towards their autistic children. They've recently rejected these messages along with many other previous interests, but they never apologized for any of the damage they caused. They use the correct language, but they do not have the best interests of autistic people in mind.
This makes sense once you find out that only 2 of their 26 board members are actually autistic, but 19 of them are involved with large corporations. And also, only about 4% of the organization's spendings actually goes to family services, grants, and awards, but 43% goes to advertising. So here's what that actually looks like.
Instead of Autism Speaks, there are many other organizations that are worth supporting and are beneficial towards autistic individuals. The first one is Autistic Self-Advocacy Network, or ASON, and the other is the Autistic Women and Non-Binary Network, or ON Network.
So the Autistic Self-Advocacy Network, their motto is nothing about us without us, which speaks out against people who aren't autistic speaking for autistic people. They support autistic people and help them to become independent. They also promote acceptance rather than awareness, which we've established is more beneficial. Also, a lot of their staff is autistic, which means they have a better understanding of what the autistic community actually needs. And you can check out their website at autisticselfadvocacy.org.
The other organization that was mentioned is Autistic Women and Non-Binary Network. Their goals are similar to those of ASON, but they focus more on the needs of women and non-binary folks since it's easier for them to feel invisible due to lack of representation. Along with ASON, they also support autism acceptance. You can check out their website at onnetwork.org.
So our school currently participates in a movement called Light It Up Blue, where people wear blue to raise awareness about autism. And even though its intentions are good, it is considered to be hostile by autistic people because of its strong associations with Autism Speaks and how it spreads awareness, which we've said is not beneficial for autistic people. Also, just some information about the movement. The color blue was chosen because autism is far more commonly diagnosed in boys than girls, even though autism is just underdiagnosed in girls. And we shouldn't participate in Light It Up Blue anymore since it doesn't focus on acceptance.
What we can participate in instead is a different movement called Red Instead. It was created specifically to combat the problems with Light It Up Blue and focus more on acceptance rather than awareness.
And here's a helpful visual that restates everything, like how we should focus more on acceptance rather than awareness and take part in Red Instead and not Light It Up Blue. So what does this mean? It means we should start focusing more on acceptance of autistic people rather than awareness. We should stop supporting organizations like Autism Speaks that treat autism like a bad thing or a disease that needs to be cured, which it isn't. Instead, we should support organizations like Autistic Self-Advocacy Network and Autistic Women and Non-Binary Network, which actually give autistic people a voice. And our school should not participate in Light It Up Blue anymore, and we should do Red instead by wearing red in it. So thanks for listening. What are your questions?
Well, first, let me say thank you so much for presenting to us. That is just incredible, and it is amazing to see students out there advocating for students. So thank you. As I consider myself personally to be an ally, and you know, a lot of this stuff is stuff I've thought about, but I'm embarrassed to say I have not done anything about it. So Scott, I commend all this to your attention, and I hope that leadership will talk about this when they come up with plans for this coming April, if it happens, or certainly for next year. And I guess if there's curriculum that's going to be going out for distance learning about autism, could you sort of consult with staff about what it will look like?
Me, yeah, of course. I was also going to suggest that tomorrow at my leadership team meeting, I share portions of the presentation that was just made. In fact, can somebody email me that PowerPoint?
Yeah, I got it.
I can
Thanks, Gayatri.
spend some time with the leadership team. I'll have all the supervisors and principals with me tomorrow. We can spend a few minutes looking it over, so I put it on their radar.
That's wonderful. I mean, I can't speak for the board about the whole issue. I'm one person, but I hope that before staff send out any sort of Light It Up Blue messages this April, that they'll have a good chance to talk about, to listen to the presentation or parts of it and discuss this. let me not only speak for myself and see if anybody else wants to talk. Ms. Loth, is that you? Let me unmute you. How do I do that? Unmute. Yes.
I just wanted to say some of the graphics looked really interesting, but they went by really quickly.
Yes,
so
they did.
it would be nice to see them again. Thank you.
Would Gayatri or Toby be willing to email the presentation to the whole board?
Yeah, I'll do it.
Okay. Okay. Did you want to put up any of the graphics right now for the public posting of this meeting? Yeah, just if you could just, we'll keep talking, but if you could put one of the graphics up on your screen share, that'd be great. Because we will be posting this soon on the district website. And that'll be great for people to see.
Yeah, here's the...
I was very interested in the pie chart. You went over that very quickly, the spending that goes on. Yes, that one.
Look at that.
Wow. Okay.
The idea that family services would get such a tiny piece of the pie and support for actual autistic people is just unbelievable. I had no idea.
And may I ask a question? Is the program we're doing now, I think you called it Light It Up Blue, is that a way to raise money for this organization? Is that the outcome of any cooperation between the schools and these organizations?
Students, did you, oh, let's see. Are you muted? No, you're good.
I think they're muted, yeah.
I unmuted Gayatri and I think Toby is unmuted now.
Yeah. Okay. So, Light It Up Blue was, it doesn't raise money. I mean, it can sometimes raise money for Autism Speaks, but it's mainly just to spread awareness about it. Like,
I see.
Yeah, it's more just to spread their messaging than like actually raise money for them.
I see. Thank you.
Ms. Loth, did you have your hand up there?
I know, I turned it, but Monique does.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I see now.
No, I just wanted to say, I just wanted to say thank you to the students for this very enlightening presentation. And I wanted to know if you have a sense of, if you've talked to some of your peers or, teachers to get a sense of what people already know in the school community about this alternative. And if not, that's fine. I'm just curious to know if you've done any of that.
Well, I have told some of my friends about like Autism Speaks and like the damage they've done, and they didn't really seem to know until I told them. So.
Yeah, I've had a couple conversations with other students where it was just clear to me that they had no idea.
Right. Yes. So hey, you're spreading awareness, but I know you want acceptance, right? So we need awareness and acceptance of the red alternative.
Michelle, I think you had your hand up and I lowered it by mistake. Go ahead, please.
That's fine. I wanted to thank the students for the presentation. I think this is exactly the kind of participation that's going to move the needle in many different ways. So I wanted to thank you both. And also I wanted to ask you if you had resources that you think the student population needs to have directly about the concept of autism, because I know that because of all kinds of different laws, privacy issues, etc., we're not allowed to discuss anyone's, neurological, what do you say, like neurological realities. So I think that it sometimes is difficult for students to appreciate how difficult the school structure can be for a student with autism. So I just thought maybe if you had resources that you thought the student population would need to have directly to understand what their classmates with autism, you know, could be feeling and thinking in a regular school day.
I'm not hearing you well, Michelle. Gayatri and Toby, were you able to hear it on your end?
Yeah, I could.
Okay, just breaking up a little bit, Michelle.
So, we do have some resources, like we have the websites that were mentioned in our slides, which we'll share with the board.
Thank you.
And also we have the sources that we use, which, you know, are also in the presentation. So yeah, we'll just share that with the board.
Thank you. That's wonderful. I know you said a lot of people already know what autism is, and I'm fully on board with, do I have it right? Acceptance, not awareness, or celebration, not acceptance and awareness. I do think there is a lot of misinformation out there about what autism is, because it's a complicated concept. So I think, Scott, our students might benefit from instruction on that in some form, and our staff as well. I mean, I know I heard various sort of, I've heard the ways that people talk about autism in the school community, and it's not always as informed as it could be by, you know, actual scientific information. So perhaps the district could consider that as well. Okay. Did you hear that, Scott?
Got it.
Yep. All right, great.
Yeah.
My sound system is a little iffy. Does anyone else have questions or comments? Oh, Ruth, please. Let me unmute you. You're unmuted, I think. Wait, Ruth.
Now I'm. I just wanted to jump in and say thank you again, and from me personally, because this is, you know, in the autism community, a big thing, and it's been a big thing for a long time now, but it's not something that you see in the actual schools during Autism Awareness Month. You see a bunch of t-shirts and light it up blue, and you don't hear what we need to hear. So I thank you very much. I think it's really important that it's coming from you guys, and it's wonderful. You did a great job. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much. This is incredibly informative. Did you have anything else you wanted to say before we close the public comments?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I just wanted to say thank you for, like, you know, being engaged with the presentation and, like, you know.
Oh, you're welcome. We're delighted. This is very, very helpful. Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, thanks for this opportunity.
Of course, it was a pleasure. All right, I'm going to mute you guys. You can either stay for the rest of the meeting or not. We'll have another public comment session at the very end. At that point, if anybody wants to participate, just raise your virtual hand. So let's see, I'm muting you now, Toby. I'm muting you, Gayatri. And let's see, okay, are there any other members of the public who would like to make a comment? Please raise your virtual hand. Okay, seeing none, it is time for our board action items. Michelle, would you like to move the curriculum and instruction items? Let's see, I'm gonna unmute everybody. So everybody just try to, don't cough too much. We're all unmuted.
Okay, I would like to move the curriculum and instruction items number 1 through 5, making a special little addendum on the item number 3, letter H, incident report HS 1920-06. And we would like to amend that in opposition to the original finding.
Okay, is there a second? Oh, sorry, Michelle, excuse me.
No, I just wanted to say that was it.
Sorry about that. I find this very awkward, this video conferencing thing. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second from either Mark or Rob or either of the two. All right, is there any discussion? Please raise your virtual hand. All right, seeing none, Linda, could we have a roll call, please?
Ms. Meyer?
Yes.
Ms. Coleman?
Yes.
Ms. Gowan?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Magaziner?
Yes.
Ms. Nicola?
Yes.
Mr. Wislevich?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Mr. Woodward?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Let's move on to finance. Mark, would you like to move the finance items?
Yes, thank you. I'd like to move items 1 through 21.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, Linda, could we have a roll call, please?
Ms. Byer?
Yes.
Ms. Coleman?
Yes.
Ms. Gowan?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Magaziner?
Yes.
Ms. McFadden Nicola?
Yes.
Mr. Rizlevich?
Yes.
Mr. Woodward?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I would like to move the personnel items. That's number 1 through 14. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
All right, Monique was first, I think. Is there any discussion? Raise your virtual hand. Nope. Linda, could we have a roll call, please?
Ms. Byer?
Yes.
Ms. Coleman?
Yes.
Ms. Gowan?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Magaziner?
Yes, 1 through 12 and abstain 13 and 14.
Ms. McFadden Nicola?
Yes.
What's that?
Can you mute everybody for a moment? Okay. So, Ruth is not muted, but she's not feeding back. Monique, can you turn on Monique?
Very loud sound. What was that?
Well, actually, I only need to hear from, let's see, Mr. Rizlevich.
Yes.
Mr. Woodward?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So everybody, you can, if it helps, maybe try to mute yourself when you're not talking. I know it's a little bit hard to remember to do that constantly. Okay, policy. Mark, would you like to move the policy items, please?
Yeah, I'd like to move item 1.
Is there a second? Is there a second on the policy motion? Oh, if I muted.
Second.
I'll second.
Was that Magaziner?
Was that Rob Magaziner? Or was that, no, was that Rob also?
Yes.
Who seconded?
Raise your hand.
Robert.
It was Rob also. It was Rob.
Rob, Michelle.
That's better.
Okay.
Okay, is there any discussion? Okay, Linda, could we have a roll call, please?
Ms. Byer?
Yes.
Ms. Cimaros? Oh, no. Ms. Coleman? Ms. Coleman, you need to turn on your mic.
Yes. Sorry.
Ms. Gowan?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Magaziner?
Yes.
Ms. McFadden Nicola?
Yes.
Mr. Rizlevich?
Yes.
Mr. Woodward?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, now it's time for our board liaison reports. I imagine they're going to be pretty sparse. Municipal Drug and Alcohol Alliance. Scott, I'm assuming there's nothing.
Nothing.
Okay, Mark, anything from your committee's Bureau of Public Information, Highland Park Television?
None of the 3.
Or cable TV, okay. Let me not skip anybody here. Mr. Magaziner, HPEF?
Well, I did not attend a meeting, and I believe that was canceled last week, but I know that they did forward over some grants, so.
Great.
Which we addressed earlier.
Okay.
Thanks.
Scott, thank you. Scott, Public Library?
Yeah, they canceled their last meeting.
Sorry, say again, I couldn't hear.
I'm sorry, they canceled their last meeting.
That makes sense. Shared Services, I have nothing. CPAC, Ruth and Monique. Ruth and or Monique.
Nothing. I don't have anything, Ruth, and I'm assuming there's been no meeting that you're aware of as well.
No, there's a meeting, I think, the first week of April, but I don't know what they're going to do, so I haven't heard anything.
Okay, I thought you said 1st of April, something like that.
First week in April?
First week in April, sorry, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's see, Human Relations. I did not attend the last meeting, which I think may have been canceled. I will get minutes if it if indeed it happened, and share them with y'all next time, or 2 times from now at our next opportunity. Green Team, Mr. Ruslevich, and Board of Health.
But with Board of Health, there was a meeting. Most of what was discussed in relation to the current pandemic is out of date. But
I'm having trouble hearing you, Rob. Could you?
The board.
Okay, Rob.
And I'm going to suggest we direct people who are having this data problem to shut their video off. That's probably
okay. Ruslevich, video off? Okay, try again.
That will help. I think my internet connection is slow, so I will send information.
No, it's not helping in that case.
Bad.
Can anyone hear me now?
Yes.
I will send my report to the
move.
board at the. Okay. I'll step back. I'll send my report to the board.
Fantastic. And if necessary, we could try to read it aloud at the next meeting. Thank you, Rob. Okay, and that was Board of Health, and you had nothing for Green Team, Cable Advisory, nothing, Delegate to New Jersey School Boards. I'm the backup, I believe. I might not be the backup, but there's nothing. Delegate to Middlesex County School Boards. Michelle, has there been any activity on that front?
I have not seen anything. There were a few emails regarding the virus and how to deal with it. They have some webinars available. So those looked interesting, and any of us can attend because they are free and they are remote. So those are available in your email. Other than that, nothing to report.
Great, thanks. I see Ruslevich is listed here. Rob Ruslevich, are you the alternate delegate to Middlesex County? Letter P says Rob Ruslevich. I think that just indicates you're an alternate, right?
Correct.
Okay. All right. President's report. I have nothing for the President's report. Is there any old business? Raise your virtual hand. I see nothing. Is there any new business? Virtual hands. I see nothing. Okay, public comment. The Highland Park Board of Education welcomes public participation and has reserved this time for your comments. Board policies 164 and 167 establish and regulate the right of the public to participate in public meetings. I don't see any public participants. If you're there and I'm not seeing you, raise your virtual hand.
What's that?
I'm seeing nobody. Okay, I'd like to move that we adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everybody. See you next time.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.